What's up, guys, and welcome back to Tar Heel 24/7. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones here for another daily drop. And AJ, in this UNC football-related drop, we're going to be talking about how Bill Belichick and Michael Lombardi and really this new Carolina football program as a whole is doing a lot better job of honoring and, for lack of a better word, not ignoring Carolina's football past, because we've talked about this before, AJ, many a times, about how it's been neglected a little bit. I've said it many a times. My dad has had the same season tickets for 15 plus years now, the same section in the upper deck of Keenan Football Stadium, excuse me. And he's on the front row. And one of my favorite things that we used to do was we used to bang on the boards. What was on those boards? It was the names of some of the most legendary Carolina football players of all time. You know, you fast forward a few years, go back a little bit to the past, and they got rid of that, and it's been replaced with a video board, but they didn't put them really anywhere else. So that is just a small snippet of what we're kind of talking about here, of even back in the day, there used to be a little bit more of the past you could identify when you stepped into Keenan Football Stadium. And in a lot of ways, that is kind of gone. But like we said in this one, I think Bill Belichick and Michael Lombardi are doing a better job of starting to bring that back to light. So you wrote a column that we put out, that you put out on our website on Tuesday. I'll try to link it below, that kind of talks about this. So this drop is kind of building on that. So I'll kick it over to you. Talk to me about what you mean and what kind of led you to write this column, because obviously there has to be some evidence back there for you to kind of put something like this out. So what led to you, deciding to put out a column like this?
Hearing what Michael Lombardi has said, some of the interviews he's done when he talked with us, Bill Belichick a little bit. Then when you go into the Keenan Football Center, when you go into the lobby, there's two sets of doors in the lobby that go deeper into the football center. The one on the far right, if you're facing where the press conferences are, when you walk through there, they got some busts on the wall of a few coaches, and I believe Art Weiner's one of the players, and they look fantastic. And you look at and you automatically, that guy must have been a great coach. You don't have to know anything about him. And some of the imagery that they put out on social media and around the building, I'd like to see more of the building inside. We used to be able to go pretty much throughout, and they would show us lots of things. I would like to see that again if we have a chance to see what else they've done. Putting up the LT era uniform in the lobby, which wasn't there before, not ignoring what has been great at times. I think the reality of Carolina football, and Belichick has actually said this, and so has Lombardi, while the teams haven't been consistently great, the program has produced a lot of really good players. Like the player production on NFL players and college Hall of Fame types and so on far exceeds what the teams have done. Like they've grossly underachieved as a program.
Yeah. For
decades.
Yes.
Decades. And they put out a lot of big time players. You go back and look at the NFL draft in the late 70s, early mid 80s, it's loaded. Look at the 1998 NFL first round. 3 Carolina defensive players. The program has done it before. They've produced enough really, really good guys. I list a bunch of the names in the column for effect, and not enough fans, especially newer fans, know anything about it. Chris Hamburg had a birthday last week. The program puts it out there, and I bet you very few people had any idea who he was. The reason I know who he was for multiple reasons. Number one, I grew up in Washington, D.C. area. So when I first started watching football, he was still with the Redskins, 2-bar mask and wreaking all kinds of hell on the field. And he was like the last great two-way player at Carolina. Literal two-way player. He was a center and a linebacker. And he was a seven-time Pro Bowl, I think it was. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he legendary, great player. No one knew who he was. You should walk into Keene Stadium and somewhere see something of him honoring him, what he did. He just won. Ken Willard was the number 2 pick in the NFL draft in the early mid-'60s. Mm-hmm. No one knows who the hell he is. Nobody knows who he is. No. But you know all about the basketball players. You walk into the Dean Dome, and I'm not pitting one against the other, but when you walk in the Dean Dome, you could sit back and just go through time, and you can feel it. You can feel the 50s.
You can't miss it.
Feel the 60s when it really started rolling with Dean in the late 60s. You could feel the 70s. You could feel MJ and Sam and James. You could feel Montross and Lynch and Phelps. You could feel Jameson and Cota and Carter. You could feel that stuff. Mm-hmm. You could lean back for a moment, and if you witnessed it or you've studied it enough so you feel like you went through it, for a moment you're watching an alley-oop to Vince Carter in your mind. For a moment you're watching an incredible defensive play by Bobby Jones leading to, or a steal at midcourt leading to a dunk by Dudley Bradley, guys like that. People can feel it in their bones with these guys, but there's not enough of that with football. And I know basketball's had so much more success. It's a fabled program, and football's not. But there's been enough good football players to come through, really good ones, that should be acknowledged and should be a part of a lore that doesn't exist. That's one of the things that has been missing for a long time. And Belichick and Lombardi want to amp that up. Every time Belichick starts talking about these guys or is asked about it, he starts bringing the names up. He was telling a story on the ACC network last week about Calvin Daniels. I bet you 99.9999999% of the Carolina fans watching that had no clue who Calvin Daniels was. I do. I'm sure your dad does. I'm sure some of the older ones watching here do. But the young ones need to know as well. The young ones know who Michael Corrin was. They should know who Calvin Daniels was. I think that football, part of football becoming important. A lot of Carolina fans have wondered, why hasn't the program just taken off? Well, you just don't take off. There has to be a lot of stuff in place. Right now, I think they're doing an awful lot to improve the infrastructure for football to take off. But if you're recruiting and you're walking around Keene Stadium, there's nothing that tells you this place matters. There's no indication of greatness beforehand. There's no celebration of anybody that meant anything to the program on a significantly high level was ever there. You should know about it. Now, in Football Center, you see some of that stuff, and I thought that Matt did a pretty good job noting all those guys that were in there, but I think you need to blow it up. I think you need to embrace these guys wearing a throwback uniform. Mac was in love with his own throwback uniform, and I get it because fans love it. Why not a choo-choo era uniform for a game? Mm-hmm. People need to know he was the only runner-up for the Heisman Trophy, two-time runner-up for the Heisman Trophy until Darren McFadden, 18 years ago. He nearly won it. I mean, Carolina, if they almost had a Heisman Trophy winner, people generally know who he is. He's the only athlete with a statue on campus.
Yeah.
But the point is this, and it's a very long-winded answer, but you asked me, so I'm going through all the things that led me to write this.
Sorry, it's going to be a quick podcast, I promise. So.
Yeah, hopefully.
Wink, wink.
So John Bunning was part of that. He was there when Dooley got the thing going. When Dooley changed the culture of the ACC, he made football matter in the ACC. The ACC was dying in football. It was pretty good with the transition from the Southern Conference. 50s, Maryland won a national championship. Duke had some really good teams in the 50s, Sonny Jurgensen, all that stuff. Carolina was at the end of it, and they started struggling in football. But the 60s, ACC football was a disgrace. And Dooley comes in with 3 yards in a cloud of dust. The old trench fighter made it tough. And next thing you know, everybody started embracing tough football. Clemson wins the national championship, and the league is okay in football. Bunning loved that era and used to complain that it was not promoted enough. And he would try to tell stories, but he was also facing with just horrible losses. And so he really wasn't the guy to get the message out that much. So I had dinner with him back in 2013 in Wilmington, and we were talking about some of that stuff. And he didn't say, I think he agreed with me, saying, one of the Carolina football's biggest problems is Carolina football itself. The way the university views football, it doesn't know what to do with it. It could prop up all these winners and this other stuff, but it didn't understand, hadn't figured out yet how to prop up the good parts of football. Larry Fedora comes in, he's on probation right away, and he's just fighting for his life, basically. Matt comes in, with all due respect, well, they haven't done this around here before. They haven't done that around here before. They haven't done that many times. In an attempt, I think, maybe to build his own situation up, kind of denigrated the past a little bit. And I understand why he did that. He had to sell what he was doing. He had to get people to focus on now and appreciate it, because I said the same thing in a column. Look, you haven't been that much, and Mac was at least getting some consistency there. At least that was the intent. So you have to understand what he's saying. But there is so much more to it. And I love that Belichick and Lombardi see that. They both know, because they've scouted great players on this campus for years, for decades. And the reality is, with Bill Belichick, Lawrence Taylor's first position coach in the NFL was Bill Belichick. Maybe if LT doesn't turn into the greatest defensive player who's ever stepped foot on this earth and who changed the sport, if that doesn't happen under the direction of Bill Belichick, maybe Bill Belichick's career never takes off the way it does, and he's not a legend. They are intertwined.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
So there is a lot of good stuff in the past. They want to extract that out. I think it needs to be plastered everywhere. When you walk up to Kenan Stadium, no matter what angle, you need to see a place that, wow, this place matters. You know, these guys, they had a really good – Brian Blados was here. Wow. William Fuller.
Mm-hmm.
Don McCauley. Don McCauley broke O.J. Simpson's rushing record. How many people know that? He was the all-time single-season rushing leader at one point. How many people know that?
Not many.
Famous Amos Lawrence was the second player in college football history to run for 1,000 yards in 4 straight seasons, aside from Tony Dorsett. How many people know that?
Mm-hmm.
I could go on and on and on and on. Okay, the teams aren't there, but the players are there. So you got to celebrate something, prop them up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you're going to see more and more of that. The longer this regime is in place, you're going to see more of that stuff. They put it out in the videos. That LT era uniform, if they're going to wear it, and we said a couple months ago, we reported that they're going to wear it either this year or next year. They weren't sure at the time when, but they were going to wear it at some point, and they should. Go back and wear the Choo-Choo uniform. Why not? Go back and wear one of those great Dooley team uniforms with the oval. Why not?
You know what it is? You walk into the Smith Center and you can't miss it. All you got to do is look up. You literally can't miss it. You walk in, again, like you said, I'm not comparing the two programs. Carolina's won 5 national titles in basketball since they last won an ACC championship in football. There's no comparison between the two. But I'm making a point of, you walk in the Smith Center, you can't miss it. You walk in the Kenan Stadium now, you can't find it. That's the difference. And that's the part of it that's been neglected. That's why I always bring up the boards. It's such a small thing, but at least it was a thing that when you walked in Kenan Stadium, you couldn't miss it. You could look around and see those names, and that might make you go home and Google it and watch some YouTube videos. Who's Amos Lawrence? Who's this guy? Who's Charlie Choo-Choo Justice? I don't know who that is. But it allows you to kind of look into it yourself. But even that was kind of taken away. So I do like what the new regime is doing in that regard. They do need to prop up the history of the program. And again, this is something that we have talked about. I guarantee you go back 5 years and find a podcast about us talking about this, because we have always harped on this. Because there is no, and I think in your eyes too, and in my eyes for sure, there really isn't any excuse for it. Because if Carolina had a crap football history, and I'm not saying, like you said, individual wise, they have a great football history. If they had a crap one, I can understand why they wouldn't prop it up. But when it's there and you still neglect it, it's kind of like, man, get out of your own way a little bit. Like, show off the good things about this program, because most of the things from the outside looking in associated with North Carolina football are not necessarily the most positives of things. It's a lot of mediocrity. It's a lot of underachieving. You know what I mean? So,
but don't allow that narrative to just continue to fester. And
you can fix it.
So, okay, let me ask you a question. I'm going to make a point here, and we'll get going here soon. I'm going to make a point because my response was 17 hours. So we already surpassed all time limits for the drop. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask everybody else watching to think about this for a second before you answer. Mm. What do you think about when you think of Illinois football, Illinois Fighting Illini football? Mm. Do you think of a program that's comparable to what North Carolina's been probably?
Yeah. Okay. I would say in and around the same.
When Carolina played there in 2016, you get off the elevator to the press box. You're greeted by a dude dressed in a red Grange. That's what I'm talking about.
That's fantastic.
When you go at stadium, they've had some really good players in the past. Mm-hmm. And they tell you without having to tell you. So I'm in Illinois thinking, it's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. It's an old stadium like Carolina's. It looks old like Carolina's, but it's also new. And Carolina still needs to do some work on that, like concourse and all that kind of crap, make it show some pride, right? But let people know, hey, there's just some dudes here. When I went to Illinois, I mean, they were struggling. Lovie Smith was the head coach. He just gotten the job. They were struggling. The program hadn't been worth a crap for a while. But you got greeted by red freaking Grange when you got off the elevator in the press box. I mean, I could drop the mic and walk off now. That's my point.
That's all you really need to say.
That's my point. Yeah. Carolina needs to do that. I love the fact that Belichick and Lombardi care so deeply about that. And that's coming out now. And whoever takes the reins and whenever, they got to do the same thing. But it's the school's responsibility as well. And I think a lot of stuff's headed in the right direction as far as not just financing, not just, you could throw money at stuff, doesn't mean it changes, but there has to be a full-on intent. And they've got the brass in place now to move this thing as far as it's physically capable of moving. And part of that is to attach yourself to why, to its good in the past, to positives from the past, to give it more meaning now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels like Belichick and Lombardi understand it, and it feels like they're steering UNC in the right direction in that regard. And I think that's what we'll leave it here. Remains to be seen. Let's see how it continues to play out, however long they might be here. But again, all signs pointed in the right direction to them honoring and bringing back and making people understand and not be able to miss, like you said, the legacy that Carolina football has historically. So I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Get involved in the comments. Do you agree with us? Do you not agree with us? Do you not care if there's, plaques and statues and stuff around, or do you kind of agree with us and say, yeah, man, you got it? Why not show it off a little bit? We appreciate y'all watching as always. Make sure you like, make sure you share, hit that subscribe button. We'll see y'all next time. Thanks.
Thanks.